Hey guys, I'm so sorry I haven't made a new video in a long time. I've just been extremely busy. I'll post a video next week, and then I'll be going to Disney for a few weeks, and then I will post videos on a regular schedule again, if not every other week, but I will try to put as much videos out as possible. So I hope you can forgive me for not posting as much. So in today's video, we're going to be continuing to read out of 13 Reasons Why. We left off on page 15. So here's how it's going to go. When I'm reading Hannah's part, I'm going to be soft talking like this. And when I'm reading just a narration, I'm going to be whispering like this. So here we go. You were playing ball. I don't know if it was basketball, baseball, or what, but you couldn't come over until later, so we waited. Basketball. A lot of us played that summer, hoping to make JV as freshmen. Justin, only a sophomore, had a spot waiting for him on varsity, so a lot of us played ball with him in hopes of picking up skills over the summer, and some of us did. Well, some of us unfortunately did not. We sat in my front bay window talking for hours when all of a sudden you and one of your friends, hi Zach, came walking up the street. Zach Dempsey. The only time I've seen Zach with Hannah, even momentarily, was the night I first met her. Two streets meet in front of my old house like an upside down T, so you were walking up the middle of the road towards us. Wait, I need to think. I pick out a speck of dry orange paint on the workbench. Why am I listening to this? I mean, why put myself through this? Why not just pop the tape out of the stereo and throw the entire box of them in the trash? I swallow hard. Tears sting at the corners of my eyes. Because it's Hannah's voice. A voice that I thought I'd never hear again. I can't throw that away. And because of the rules, I look at the shoebox hidden beneath the cloth diaper. Hannah said she made a copy of each of these tapes. But what if she didn't? Maybe if the tapes stop, if I don't pass them on, that's it. It's over. Nothing happens. But what if there's something on these tapes that could hurt me? What if it's not a trick? Then a second set of tapes won't be released. That's what she said, and everyone will hear what's on them. The spot of paint flecks off like a scab. Who's willing to test her blood? You stepped out of the gutter and planted one foot on the lawn. My dad had the sprinklers running all morning so the grass was wet, and your foot slid forward, sending you into a split. Zach had been staring at the window, trying to get a better view of Kat's new friend, yours truly, and he tripped over you, landing beside you on the curb. You pushed him off and stood up, then he stood up, and you both looked at each other, not sure what to do. In your decision, you ran back down the street while Kat and I laughed like crazy in that window. I remember that. Kat thought it was so funny. She told me about it at our going away party that summer. The party where I first saw Hannah Baker. God, I thought she was so pretty. And new to this town, that's what really got me. Around the opposite sex, especially back then, my tongue twisted into knots even a Boy Scout would walk away from. But around her, I could be the new and improved Clay Jensen, high school freshman. Kat moved away before the start of school, and I fell in love with the boy she left behind. And it wasn't long until that boy started showing an interest in me, which might have something to do with the fact that I seemed to be always around. We didn't share any classes, but our classrooms for periods 1, 4, and 5 were at least close to each other. Okay, so period 5 was a stretch, and sometimes I wouldn't get there until after he left. But periods 1 and 4 were at least in the same hall. At Kat's party, everyone hung around the outside patio. Even though it was cold, it was probably the coldest night of the summer, and I, of course, forgot my jacket at home. After a while, I managed to say hello, and a little while later, he managed to say it back. Then one day, I walked by without saying a word. Oh shoot, I'm sorry. I was whispering Hannah's part. Oops. Let me start that part over. After a while, I managed to say hello, and a little while later, he managed to say it back. Then one day, I walked by without saying a word. I knew you couldn't handle that, and it led to our very first multi-word conversation. No, that's not right. I left my jacket at home because I wanted everyone to see my new shirt. What an idiot I was. Hey, you said. Are you going to say hello? I smiled, took a breath, then turned around. Why should I? Because you always say hello? I asked why you thought you were such an expert on me.
I said you probably didn't know anything about me.
At Kat's party, I bent down to tie my shoe during my first conversation with Hannah Baker, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't tie my stupid shoelace because my fingers were too numb from the cold. To say Hannah's credit, she offered to tie it for me. Of course, I wouldn't let her. Instead, I waited till Zach inserted himself into our awkward conversation before sneaking inside to thaw my fingers beneath the running water. So embarrassing.
Earlier, when I asked my mom how to get a boy's attention, she said, play hard to get, so that's what I was doing. And sure enough, it worked. You started hanging around my classes waiting for me. It seemed like weeks went by before you finally asked for my number, but I knew you eventually would, so I practiced saying it out loud. Real, calm, and confident, like I didn't really care. Like I gave it out 100 times a day. Yes, boys at my old school had asked for my number, but here at my new school, you were the first. No, that's not true, but you were the first to actually get my number. It's not that I didn't want to give it out before. I was just cautious. New town, new school, and this time, I was going to be in control of how people saw me. After all, how often do we get a second chance? Before you, Justin, whenever anyone asked, I'd say all the right numbers up until the very last one, and then I'd get scared and mess up, sort of accidentally on purpose.
I heaved my backpack onto my lap and unzipped the largest pocket. I was getting way too excited watching you write down my number. Luckily, you were way too nervous to notice. When I finally spat out the last number, the correct number, I smiled so big. Meanwhile, your hand was shaking so badly that I thought you were going to screw it up, and I was not going to let that happen. I pulled out her map and unfolded it on the workbench.
I pointed at the number you were writing. That should be a 7, I said. It is 7. I used a wooden ruler to smooth out the creases. Oh well, as long as you know it's a 7. I do, you said. But you scratched it out anyway and made it even shakier 7. I stretched the cuff on my sleeve into my palm and almost reached over to wipe the sweat from my forehead, something my mother would have done, but thankfully I didn't do that. You would never ask another girl for her number again.
Through the side garage, Mom calls my name. I lower the volume, ready to stop if it opens. Yes.
By the time I got home, you already called twice.
I want you to keep working, Mom says, but I need to know if you're having dinner with us.
My mom asked who you were, and I said we had a class together. You were probably just calling with a homework question, and she said that's exactly what you had told her.
I looked down at the first red star, C4. I know where that is, but should I go there?
I couldn't believe it, Justin. You lied to my mom. So why did that make me so happy?
No, I say. I'm heading to a friend's house for his project.
Because our lives matched. It was a sign.
That's fine, Mom says. I'll keep some in the fridge, and you can eat it up later.
That's where we're going to stop for today. Thumbs up this video and comment if you want me to keep doing this series. Also, I messed up quite a few times during this, because it gets kind of hard when you're reading it because you just want to read in one voice. So I don't even notice that the word font's different. So I'm just like whispering, I'm like, oh no, I read it wrong. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys next week. Bye.